just let you know it's 76 degrees and beautiful blue sunny skies here in Inlet Beach, Florida. So today I want to introduce you to a dear friend and probably one of the smartest guys I know, is Chris Conlee. Welcome, Chris.
Amy, thank you so much. Always great to be with you and just so appreciate our friendship and all the ways that you build into our life.
You know, one thing that we really hit home with a lot in our retreat this past weekend was the importance of relationships and friendships. And I have heard so much information just even in the last few days, how for women especially, having friendships can make you live 4 to 5 years longer if you have rich friendships.
Yeah.
So, a lot of things that we have enjoyed since COVID is seeing how we can connect on Zoom, how then we make those friendships with people on Zoom. And then when we get to see them in person, we're just like picking up and really growing that friendship. So those of you that don't know, we had a retreat. It was called our Wellness and Refinishing retreat here in Florida last weekend. And we are launching our next retreat. This will be our last retreat for a few months. And so I really wanted to be able to have this interview with Chris, to be able to deep dive into some things where you're like, y'all go over that? Like, we are discussing a lot of other things besides painting and doing refinishing. So those of you that don't know Chris Conlee, he is an incredible CEO advisor. He does a lot of mentoring. He's a pastor at a church in Memphis, Tennessee. Chris, tell us real quickly, what is going to be your Instagram?
Unpolished Christianity. So a little bit of different take on your world, but similar to your world. But we're removing the polish to discover the true beauty.
And guys, I don't know if maybe you haven't been into a situation where you had a mentor, but mentoring is huge for everybody. It doesn't matter at what point you're at. It doesn't matter what you've accomplished. It doesn't matter your level of success. We always need a mentor to be able to point out things and to be able to help us grow. So I've got some questions here that I want to be able to, Gene always says, stump the chump. I don't think I'm stumping the chump with Chris, but I want to be able to ask some questions. So I've got my phone down here and I'm going to be asking them. But what would you say with what you chose to be able to speak to our creatives last weekend? What inspired you to focus your presentation around the title of Advancing Through Adversity, or I Need a Redo?
Yeah, adversity is a way of life. You're either coming out of adversity in a mini pause between going into adversity. And so we just need to normalize adversity. This is a complicated world, and business in and of itself has lots of challenges. And so if we will normalize it, then we can look at adversity as an opportunity to advance. The issue is not adversity. The issue is, how do we respond to adversity? Mm-hmm. And then you'll find your deepest feelings in adversity. And as a creative, now you can take the deepest feelings, the strongest feelings you have, and you can channel those toward a creative energy that then identifies with people, because everyone can identify with pain or a problem. But when you can turn that pain into something beautiful, then it's something that's inspirational.
That is such a good word. And my thought is, a lot of times when we have adversity, a lot of us allow it to just stop us in our tracks and riddle us with fear. And then we do nothing. Yeah. And my mission, those of you that don't know this, is I want you to discover exactly what it is that you've been put on this earth to do, and your passions, understanding your passions and your purpose. And so that's why we can't talk about growth and introducing creativity and learning if we don't talk about the things that keep us stuck. And so, Chris, do you want to share just really briefly some examples of adversity that you faced in your own personal life and how you overcame it?
Sure. I have a very complicated family life. My dad was one of those sports driven dads. And so put a lot of pressure on me to perform. And when you have a performance driven upbringing, well, that's really, tough on your security. And so a lot of times, you battle insecurity because your security is based upon your latest performance.
Mhm.
And so there were ways that, honestly, I tried to overcome insecurity with competency. And that helps, but success doesn't always erase insecurity because insecurity is internal, whereas success is something that's external. And so I really had to go get a lot of counseling to discover who I was
Mm.
because my identity was being determined by what I did. And so I was allowing my what to determine my who instead of allowing my who to determine my what. And so once I understand my identity, then from there, I live from my identity, not for my identity.
Mm.
I live from a place of security, not for security.
Mhm. That's powerful. I always joke and say when I want to remember something, I'm like, ooh, that could be a tattoo. I would be covered in tattoos at this point, just listening to you. Um, how would you advise artists or creative entrepreneurs on how to be able to normalize adversity and use it to their advantage?
Yeah. So our feelings can be used for bad or good. And creatives typically are people that feel their feelings better than the average person. Now, the danger is for adversity to set you back in the world of feelings and you get disappointed, you get discouraged. But what we've got to do is we've got to begin to look at adversity from a different perspective. And we can say, now, wait a second, adversity happens to everyone. All right. I'm not going to get stuck in my adversity. And so the best way to get unstuck is for me to dream a new dream, for me to hit the reset button and
Mhm.
say, okay, this may be a temporary step backwards, but how do I reactivate my imagination? How do I tap into my truest desires again? Here's the thing. Vision rarely changes, but plans often do. So the vision that's inside of you, it's going to stay alive through adversity.
Mhm.
The adversity might cause you to change the plans. So go back and rediscover what you're really great at. Your strengths rarely change, your gifts rarely change. Yes, you add skills along the way, but when you rediscover what you really love and what you're good at, you'll dream again.
Such a good word. I've told gals that I have mentored about ask the three people closest to you the three things that they see that you're really good at. Sometimes we're really blinded to it. And the fact that's why we need to ask someone who's closest to us and they'll tell us, oh, we have the gift of hospitality, or you're incredibly creative, or you're very detailed, or whatever that is. And that really kind of helps with the exploratory things that we should be doing on an ongoing basis. Um,
And
so
a lot of times we are our own worst critic. We are harsher on ourselves than someone else, and we see ourselves through the lens of a microscope, whereas other people see our strengths, we tend to see our weaknesses.
mm, such a good word. You were such a treasure trove um, of words. I know that you talk a lot about cultivating good soil.
Yeah.
Can you just kind of give us some tips on cultivating good soil in our personal life and then being able to use that to improve our professional life?
Yeah, definitely. What's important to realize, let's work backwards in that question for a moment. If we start with the end in mind and we look at the harvest is never neutral. It's either seeds or weeds. So if you don't do anything, weeds are always growing, right? We don't have to do anything to make a weed grow.
Mhm.
So what we do have to do is we have to cultivate good soil. And cultivating good soil really involves two things. It involves what you take out of the soil, but it also involves what you put into the soil. And so to cultivate good soil, you got to remove the rocks, You got to remove the things that are preventing that soil from being rich. You've got to remove some of the thorns. You've got to soften the soil if the soil is hard and doesn't have enough moisture to it. And then once you identify what you've got to remove, you've also got to identify, well, what do I need to put in? But also you've got to be patient. It's a process. So, one of the principles that we all know and we've all heard is you reap what you sow. But reaping comes after the process. And so you got to realize there's a process of cultivating good soil that's going to be, a couple of months. There's a process of planting the seed that's going to be a couple of months. And a lot of activity happens beneath the surface and you don't ever see it. And that's when you get impatient. And that's when you worry a little bit. But you've got to trust the process to know that, oh, somewhere in month 4, 5, or 6, I'm going to see something pop up above the surface and I'm going to see hope emerge, right? And I'm going to begin to gain confidence because now all the hard work is producing a harvest.
Is there somebody that you've mentored or had in your life, maybe in the past, or maybe even currently, that had a major breakthrough when they were actually embracing the idea of the magic of a redo?
Yeah, and I think what's important, even as you ask that question, is to realize that no one is successful with plan A. Everybody has to have a redo. It's plan B, plan C, plan D. And so if we'll just even normalize that no one is truly just does everything right the first time, there's a learning curve. But then in that, if we normalize that, then we just embrace that as the new norm. We don't beat ourselves up over it. We don't criticize ourselves over it. We don't doubt ourselves over it. And then what we do is we give that person the ability to embrace their own learning curve. When that happens, I call it frequently that you hit the reset button. And when you hit that reset button, I have seen there's one particular person I'm thinking about right now. After his son graduated, he was a single dad. After his son graduated college and became independent, moved out, it just really hit him hard. And he just kind of was in one of those seasons of having to redefine life and was kind of what's my purpose and a sense of loneliness. And we really had to work with him both on personal development before professional development. And once we cultivated good soil of just, what does it mean to have healthy habits? You can't be healthy without healthy habits. And once he did that, now today he's the number one salesman in the country for his company. And it's just something that what you see is there's got to be alignment between your personal life and your professional life. When we have alignment between those two, typically we're going to see things work in sync, and we're going to be, statistics will tell you that if you address your personal and professional life together at the same time, it's 10 times more effective than just focusing on one or the other.
How would you say, how would we know if we need a redo, whether in our personal or professional life?
Check your energy level. So in the same way that, you look at your gas tank and you go, okay, well, am I running toward empty or am I almost full? Check your energy level. Your energy level is one of the most true, accurate tests in life that reveals what's really driving you. And so if everything is pulling energy from you and it's an energy taker versus an energy giver, then you need to reevaluate.
I'm like, guys, I don't know if you're listening to this. I'd love for you to make a comment, but it's like, we need this kind of stuff. Like, I need it for my own life because I'm looking at making some decisions. And one thing that Chris had shared with me personally years ago was this, and this funnel that I use to this day, is it a good idea or is it a God idea? And that's how I've saved myself from saying yes sometimes when I should have been saying no, and being able to stay focused on what it is that I am supposed to be doing that is directly in relationship to what my giftings are. If we're working outside of our giftings, that's too when we get really exhausted. So, is there anything else that you'd like to just share with everybody in order to be able to help them prepare for the preparations and the things that we'll actually be going over in the retreat?
Yeah, I would say a retreat is a unique opportunity in life where you can escape all the pressures and busyness of the world, and you can set aside 72 hours or however many hours it is. You set that aside. And here's what I would encourage you to do: begin to tell yourself that I'm going to come to this retreat with vulnerability. I'm not going to come with walls up. I'm not going to come comparing myself with someone else. I'm not going to walk in the room and wonder if I'm good enough. I'm going to walk in and I'm going to say, I am here to receive. I'm going to be vulnerable. And if I'm facing a struggle, then I'm going to talk about my struggle because it's a safe place. See, a retreat creates a safe place. And then I would say, come with a couple of questions that you just know that are burning in your heart, whether they're personal or whether they're professional, that I need a couple of questions answered to help propel me forward. And then the last thing is come prepared to make one big decision, not five big decisions. There will be something. It may be the thing that you expect the least, but there's going to be something that's said. There's going to be some moment where the light bulb turns on, and that's the answer to your one big decision. And you need to lock it in, and you need to say, that's what I came for. And then you need to go implement it.
You know, I just saw a question pop up, and it was, not to digress, but I think it's a good question. And knowing that you and I are so much alike, and what we struggle with shutting it down, part of the question was, how do I learn with my energy and things during the day? How do I get to a point that I can shut it down at night so I can have some reserves and to be able to go into a place of rest?
Absolutely. Yeah, that is you got to learn rhythms. Okay. And so one of the things that I try to do, and I find windows of success, and there's other times I relapse. Okay. Is I try to, build blocks of time and say, okay, I know that in the morning for me, what I do from basically 8:30 to noon, I'm going to be writing content. That's mental energy. I need focus. I need a block of time. In the afternoon, I do appointments, I do meetings, I do tasks because it's a different type of energy, and I can come in and out of those. But my writing energy needs few interruptions, and it needs sustained focus. And so, if I can create blocks of time and know what type of energy does each block of time require of me, and then you got to create a finish line. If you are an entrepreneur, if you are a business owner, you don't check out at 5 o'clock. You carry the responsibility with you everywhere you go. And so you have to create a personal finish line each and every day, but especially on the weekend, a finish line where you give yourself permission to say, okay, I'm done for the day. And whatever is undone can wait till tomorrow.
And that's something I guess we just have to practice for the rest of our life. I mean, it's a discipline, just like it is getting up and brushing our teeth and going to work.
Right. And that's why I prefer to use the word rhythm, because we're not always going to get it perfectly. But if we can establish a certain rhythm and know there's certain times, like here's one of the things I do: I label my months depending on the responsibility I have. It's either a power walk month, or it's a jog month, or it's a sprint month. And see, that way I set the expectation. No, there's certain months I've got to sprint, and I adjust the rest of my personal calendar to accommodate that I'm sprinting. But then there's other months like the summer months. And what I do, well, that's a power walk. There's no such thing as just when you're an entrepreneur or business, there's no such thing as just a casual walk. That's called vacation. Okay. But a power walk is when I'm going to work on it, not in it. I'm going to work on it, not in it. But then that jog is what I need to sustain is like a sprint is a 100-yard dash. A jog's a 5K, something like that. And I've got to sustain a pace to be able to go the distance.
Such a good word. And even more reason why you need to be able to come to a retreat around other women that get you. We
Yep.
get you. This is your tribe. And you see by the wisdom that Chris has and the other people that are there at the retreat that are going to pour into you and give you a word, you have a takeaway of really and truly of things that can change the trajectory of your life. So
You can get away from the phone at the retreat.
you can. Oh, you can. I should have turned my ringer off. I'll just use that as an alarm.
There you go.
To end on a good note. And Chris, I cannot thank you enough. What a treasure trove of knowledge of, first of all, one thing I think that makes you such an incredible speaker is first, your ability to be transparent, to be real, and that your desire to show that love works. And as you pour into other people, it makes a difference in their life as well. So guys, sign up, go to the link below. We can't wait to see you at the retreat next month. And Chris, thank you so much. Everybody have a fantastic Friday.
Thank you.
Bye.